Dun, 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 dun. Hey everyone, let's invite Erika along. Who's going to be chatting with us? Romy's here, of course.
Hello.
And you guys will mainly be doing the chat, right? I did a lot on baby sleep because I love to sleep with babies. Um, but this is all going to be covering pre and
Post.
postnatal nutrition. And we'll wait for. Oh, yeah. See if this all works. And you guys can comment below, obviously, with your questions. We have some questions at the end. Hello, Erika.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Sorry,
How
let
are you?
you up. Yeah, not too bad. It's,
Amazing. We're in different
right
parts
in
of
the
the
middle.
world and it feels like we're in the
Yeah,
same room.
that's it. Which we only figured out yesterday, which was, yeah,
I know, which is,
spontaneous.
should have asked, but that's okay. We're making it work.
That's it. We're all together on this. And Romy as well.
Hi, hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are
Um,
you?
We're good here. It's nighttime, so just
Perfect.
relaxing after the baby's asleep.
Right. That's always when you can take a deep breath and feel like can kick my feet up and relax.
Exactly. Do nothing but watch TV for a little bit.
It's good. You need it.
Yeah, so perfect. So always the best place to start is with some sort of like a story of how you got into nutrition and a bit about your background, and then we'll just kind of pick
Sure.
up from there.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see, background wise, let's start with, I went to USC, so University of Southern California. I grew up in California. So for anybody who's watching, I'm in the United States and we didn't realize that we were in different parts of the world until only yesterday. But I grew up in California and I grew up dancing. And when I was about 16 years old, I'd actually developed a pretty severe eating disorder, anorexia. And I ended up getting help from an amazing dietitian who really became, a mentor to me. And that was really the start of my journey, if you will. I realized, how food actually affected my body and how to kind of just go through. There's a lot of noise out there, I think, with nutrition, a lot of diet tips, and especially as women we're constantly being told what we need to look like, how we should look. And once I started on my journey of recovery, that's really where my passion and interest for just nutrition in general began. So I decided, I promised myself, okay, I'm going to continue studying this. And then one day I want to help women who, either have eating disorders themselves, or just, moms, new mothers, because there's a lot of change that happens in our bodies. And, like everything else, the minute we have the baby, people are asking us, or we're being told, hey, when are you going to bounce back, lose the baby weight? And there's a lot of pressure with that. So that's really where my passion started. And so then after college, I went on to get my master's of science from Loma Linda University, and that's where I studied nutrition and dietetics. And I've been, working in that field for almost 10 years now.
Oh, that's a long time. Yeah. So, back home, when you say at the moment working on this, do you have advise people or
Yes. So I have a private practice where so I've worked in the hospital setting. I've worked so in a clinical setting. I've also worked in a community type setting. And then now I have my private practice where I consult and work with clients on a one-to-one basis.
and do you mostly do moms, I'm assuming, or people
I
before?
mostly do moms. I would say in general, I mostly do women as a whole, but I mostly work with mothers. And I think a lot of that is because, especially postpartum, after, like I said, after they've had babies, there's just so much you're trying to juggle now. Now you're a mother and you're caring for somebody aside from you who's literally dependent on you to survive. And so I think for that reason, moms tend to need that extra support. And so I'd say the
Absolutely.
vast majority of my practice would be mothers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of expectations. There's so much pressure, especially, well, also before. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot after, but before there's so much, and especially judgment. There's so much judgment on what you eat, what you don't eat. People are looking at you. I
Yeah.
only had a baby just a year and a bit ago, and I remember going out, and you always thinking, well, people at the table next door are thinking, oh, she's having cheese and she's pregnant, you know, like they don't,
Mm-hmm.
so you always feel this pressure from your family, from your friends, and
Yeah.
always kind of feeling that you're not doing the right thing, and then some people get like really sick, so they can't eat
Yep.
anything, or the other way around, they just want to eat all day, you know, and it's really difficult
True.
to control this. So I think out there's not that much advice. I don't know in the US, but here, while I was so,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in the UK, this is one of the reasons we wanted to bring someone over because I am a nurse. So I study
Okay.
nursing in university. So I know what to expect. So I knew what to eat, what not to eat, and
Mm-hmm.
these are things no one had to tell me. But when I went here to the doctor and I was pregnant, you know, they teach you and they're like the midwife tells us everything.
Yep.
No one told me what to eat. Literally nothing.
Wow.
They didn't tell me what to avoid. We remember we went to this appointment and I actually left the appointment and I said to him, she hasn't said anything. No, there's no information. You can find it
Wow.
online, but
Of
you know,
course.
I just feel like there's so much misinformation and also like a lot of wives' tales what you can't
Mm-hmm.
have, and, you know, so there's so much mystery around it, and I think a lot of moms are guilty and feel guilty
Yep.
throughout the journey.
It's true, and I think there's a lot of old, older information. So you had mentioned the cheese, for instance, and of course, you know, when you're pregnant, you do want to be careful around certain foods, but most of the time, you know, we're putting a lot of emphasis on, for example, cheese or eggs. Some women are really afraid to eat eggs, and the reality is you have more of a risk of getting a foodborne illness from raw vegetables. But you shouldn't be fearful of eating raw vegetables. I just think a lot of that fear is misplaced. And so women go through pregnancy, especially first time mothers, not knowing what to eat. And so they avoid a lot of foods that would actually be really great for them to eat. And I think it's absolutely true. There's a lot of pressures on mothers to eat a certain way, exercise, and it's hard because you already are putting pressure on yourself. The last thing you need is pressure coming from other people. I do think that in the world of medicine, we generally need more focus on nutrition. There's not enough of that, especially with everything that's going on right now with, you know, talking about this COVID, you know, coronavirus. Right now, we should be really focusing on nutrition because there's so much that you can do to make a strong immune system by what you're eating, you know, what you're not eating. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of emphasis on that in the medical world.
Yeah.
With the like the experience going to, because you start to go to these the classes, and we have a thing called
Mhm.
NCT, which is kind of a group arranged, like you meet lots of people locally, and that's kind of your is it weekly?
Well,
You kind of,
you do a course. There's all sorts of courses, but the
Okay.
most popular one is that you do
it's this
before you
group,
have the
yeah,
baby. So it's the usual, you know, but the prenatal course that you
Mm-hmm.
do. But
yeah.
these mainly people do it to make friends locally because it's a local
Okay.
course, and then you learn things and you
It's
learn
more
how
for
to
like
Of
deal
first
with.
course.
time, first time
Yeah.
parents. But there does seem like a big emphasis on it's kind of a weird thing because you kind of go there and you're kind of expected to get information, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, there's always this caveat of but this is your journey. Like this is you kind of almost want someone to give you like a little more direction. It's kind of like
No,
you know what
but
to
I think,
do.
I don't know in the US, but here in the UK, I think it's to do with accountability. So they're trying to not give advice because they say that if you give advice and it's the wrong advice, then they have given you the advice. So they always say,
True.
I can't
True.
advise. I can give you all the information, they can't advise. So I find that sometimes it's also detrimental because if there's no advice, then you don't know what to do.
What to
You know,
do. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take things with a pinch of salt, but maybe you could explain a bit more about, like,
Sure.
if someone's coming to you, for instance,
Hmm.
how maybe like taking into account what their needs are and how you're maybe
Sure.
even figuring out how that kind of works from a nutritional standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. So I think where it would start, of course, everybody has, specific needs depending on their own background, their health history. It's all really important to know. But generally speaking, my focus is always, what I say is real food. And what I mean by that is really introducing to my patients, my clients, just the importance of eating less processed, less packaged, more real foods. And unfortunately, we kind of live in a day and age where we always go for convenience. We're busy, we don't have a lot of time, and you really only get busier once the baby's here. So it's helpful if you can start, earlier and much earlier. If I get to meet with somebody before they're trying to conceive, anywhere from 3 to 4 months at the minimum, it's really great because at that point, 3 to 4 months before trying to conceive, you actually have an ability to better your egg quality. And for men, they can do the same with their sperm quality. So it can actually help with just conceiving in general. Um, Another thing that is really important is when we're pregnant, either you're really sick and so you're not eating as well in that first trimester. Some women, unfortunately, deal with it their entire pregnancies. So that can lead to nutritional deficiencies. Also, your body's just working overtime because you're supporting, not just you, but this new living being, growing being inside of you. And so, even before pregnancy, I would love to see clients really focusing on their nutrition because you can really build up your, like your nutritional stores. So that way, let's say you get pregnant, you're really sick and you can't eat, you have comfort knowing that you have, nutrients stored up in your body that are there and they're available. So, like I said, that 3 to 4 months ahead of time, if you're thinking about getting pregnant, I would really start focusing on your nutrition now. If you're already pregnant, it's never too late to start. But first and foremost, like I said, I always focus on real whole foods. But one thing that is really important to make sure that you are taking is a prenatal vitamin.
mm,
So I don't usually push supplementation, vitamins, but when you are pregnant, your needs do increase. And so it's really helpful to have something to just make sure that you're getting everything that you need. Because, like I said, if you're sick, you may not be getting what you need. Also, for some people, it's just hard to eat enough. It's hard to eat a lot of balance, depends what you have access to. So, with a prenatal, I like to start with talking about what I call activated B vitamins. And what I mean by that is, so looking, for example, you know what folic acid is.
yeah.
We hear about folic acid. We know, we hear folic acid with pregnancy all the time because it protects against neural tube defects, which is incredibly important that we're taking it. But the activated version of that is actually folate. And why does that matter? Folate is actually already the version that your body can utilize and synthesize more easily. Folic acid it's a synthetic version. So basically it doesn't occur naturally in nature. So I always start with that, looking at a prenatal vitamin that has folate, a methylated version of folate. So you'll see methylfolate or just folate is just fine. Something with vitamin B6 and also B12 is really important. And then something that is even more comprehensive. So iodine, not something that you think about a lot, but it occurs naturally in seafoods. Not everybody eats a lot of seafood. So if you don't, you definitely want to make sure that it's present in your prenatal. But why is iodine important? It supports your thyroid. And your thyroid is working overtime when you're pregnant because you're excreting so many hormones.
Mm.
Also, vitamin B12, selenium, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K2 are also really important to make sure that you're not only getting in your prenatal, but also including in whole foods. So, first thing I would do is recommend a couple of different prenatals. I would say for anybody who's watching, I would encourage you to have this conversation with a doctor or a nutritional professional and have them find one that has all of these things in it so
Yeah.
that you can make sure at the very least you're taking a good supplement.
Yeah.
So I'd start with that. Are you familiar with DHA?
No.
Okay, so DHA is actually a fatty acid. It's really important for brain development. So in utero, when the baby's in our belly, it's actually really important that we're getting enough DHA as well as omega-3.
Yeah.
And omega-3 is another fatty acid, and that actually helps with DHA to cross the placenta. So, and it helps to ensure that the placenta is able to absorb, the necessary DHA that we need, our baby needs. I do usually recommend a DHA supplement with its EPA, which is another omega-3. And so that's really important to take while you're pregnant. You don't have to take it in supplement form. Some other ways that you can get it are cold water fish, so fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, which some pregnant women can't even imagine eating fish, their
Yeah.
whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
Or
You never know if you're gonna feel that way until you're actually pregnant.
you have no idea how you're going to feel until you're actually pregnant. You may love seafood right now. You get pregnant and you may not even be able to stand the thought of seafood. So it is important. That's why supplementation can be helpful. So that way you're covering all your bases. But, having plenty of fatty fish when you are pregnant is so, so important for baby's brain development too. Also, your dark leafy greens. So spinach,
Yeah.
kale, broccoli, those are all great sources of folate too. But ultimately, I really like to make sure that my clients are just focusing on food that isn't processed. So food in its most natural state. And that even includes like I'm okay with my patients, whether it's butter.
Yeah.
Butters is not, people think, oh, butter's so bad, but it can actually be a great fat for you while you're
Yeah.
pregnant. And fat is so important too. So really just making sure that they have that understanding for me to understand what their diet is now and how can we incorporate more whole foods into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's useful in your everyday life anyway.
Yes, it is, and
Even when
it
you're not
does.
pregnant.
Yeah, even when you're not pregnant. I mean that's the whole goal is, you're pregnant for 9 months, which does feel like an eternity, especially towards the end. Yeah, towards the end, it feels like, oh, I'm going to be pregnant for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Um, but like when you're not pregnant, hopefully after you've had the baby, you've built those habits of choosing, whole, unprocessed foods. Like, we're always told to eat our fruits and vegetables, but
Mm.
it's actually hard to get enough of them. And so, finding ways to sneak more in will make a big difference, not just throughout your pregnancy, but also after pregnancy.
Yeah, I find that that's one of the things that I know pre-pregnancy is very important, but the most difficult for me it was after, even though I had a horrible pregnancy where I couldn't eat for 5, 6 months.
Really?
I had nausea literally for like a long time. I could
Oh,
eat, but I just felt sick. But for me, it's been the worst. It's been after. It's not so much because I can't eat. It's because I don't have time to eat. And
yeah.
uh, is the tiredness. I don't know. I felt like no motivation, even though I had motivation to be with my daughter and I loved it.
Hmm.
I was so tired that
Yeah.
for me, food came like last. It was like,
Hmm.
well, I'll just eat anything. And
Yeah.
actually, I think you have this idea that what they tell you after you have a baby, you're gonna lose all the weight because you're breastfeeding. I've been breastfeeding. I still do. And
Hmm.
I only lost the weight now after a year
Yeah.
because I've actually been doing this thing where I'm like
Hmm.
eating like more like you said, less processed food and stuff. And all of a sudden
Yeah.
I lost all the weight now. But I've been a year struggling with it because, you're so tired. You're like, I don't know, you have these expectations, you lose weight from breastfeeding, but you don't, and then you just eat because you feel tired and you just want comfort food,
Yeah.
and people bring you food, people come over and they just bring
Yeah.
sweets, like, you just, I think women struggle a lot after birth, and they
Hmm.
expect to lose all the weight that you don't. Most people don't, and
No.
then I think it's really hard for them, and some people drag the weight for a long time as well,
Yeah.
not year over years. So I think that for me is the most important part, is especially the after the baby.
Yeah. You're going through, your body has just gone through, so much for 9 months, but
Mm.
also no matter how great your birth was or is, it's still a lot of trauma and stress on your body. Your body's still doing this huge, huge thing that it needs to recover from. Unfortunately, I think you're exhausted after you have a baby. And quite honestly, you're exhausted even a year after having a baby. And so with that exhaustion, we do know that our hormones, we have cortisol that goes up, which is like our stress hormone, but our what I call like our hunger hormones also go up. With breastfeeding, I think, some people do lose weight. Honestly, some people hold on to the weight, and that's your body's way of protecting itself to make sure that, hey, I need to nourish this other little being. And so I need to make sure that I have enough in my storage so that I can also, take care of my body. I mean, our bodies are so smart. And I think that unfortunately, though, women, like you said, it goes back to that pressure that you have to lose the weight really quick. So as women, not only are we worried about nourishing our new baby or babies if you had multiples,
Yeah.
but you feel really stressed out about, oh, I have to get my pregnancy body back. And a lot of that, like you said, you're tired, you don't have time. It's really helpful. This is easier said than done, but asking for help. But like you said, people bring food and they bring a lot of sweets. And when you're tired, you tend to crave more sugar. So it does feel like a big cycle. And I think the biggest thing that as mothers and as women we can do is it's so important just to take a deep breath and to be really kind and gentle with ourselves and know that I always tell women, get rid of the scale, don't weigh yourself. If your pants feel a little bit tight, buy a different pair of pants because right now I mean, you're at a time in your life where there's so much more important things to do that bring value to you than what your weight is. And unfortunately, our society and our media doesn't recognize that as much as it should. Like we should be telling new mothers, how valuable and how important what they're doing is. I mean, the sacrifice to really, you sacrifice your body in a way, and it's a miracle to have a baby. But then like you said, you're breastfeeding for whether it's a year, longer than a year. That's hard too. And that takes, a toll on your body. And so I think we have to just as women really, really step back from anything that makes us feel pressured or guilty and really just focus on, what do I need as a new mother and be able to ask for that. That's really hard to do, ask for help, especially, as moms, we want to do it all. And our babies are primarily dependent on us. Not that dad isn't important, but, they're so important. But I think as a, you're like, no, I mean, baby needs, especially a breastfeeding mother. I mean, a baby is often like attached to you, and those first weeks and months. And I mean, even now, my little one's 8 months, and he's just like always on my hip. He always wants to be on me, but. I think that the first step, aside from just what you're eating, is really just honoring the fact that you just did something amazing. You're an amazing mother, an amazing woman. And if you have 5 pounds to lose, it's okay. it doesn't, forget about those 5 pounds, let go of
Yeah.
that pressure. And oftentimes when we let go of that pressure and we ask ourselves, like, what do we really need? And we start asking other people for help, you start to feel more balanced in, your area, all those different areas of life. So I think that, yes, eating well plays a big role, but that mental side of it too, and making sure you're getting enough rest is equally important.
Yeah, the rest part is not up to you sometimes.
I know. I know. The sleep part is so hard. And I mean, I remember people kept telling me, sleep when baby sleeps. And I feel like that's easier said than done because you're
Yeah.
looking around and you think, oh, there's laundry, there's dishes, I have to cook dinner, I want to shower. There's so many things to do. So I can't imagine. I kept thinking, how am I supposed to sleep when baby sleeps? It's impossible.
But maybe sometimes, but in general, that's not the case throughout the day. I mean, I don't know. I think people saying that to be nice because they think you'll be tired, but
Yeah,
reality, that's not going to happen most of the times, isn't it? It's the same as
true.
like, yeah, I don't know. People used to tell me batch cook and then you can defrost. You said, I don't care. I just do whatever that. I'm not going to start now cooking loads of
Yeah.
food and then put it in the freezer because then I have to defrost this. I have to put so much thought process into doing all of these things that I
Yeah.
just gotta buy something that's already made or you know. So yeah, it is
I
tough.
It is, and I think you have to start with what's realistic for you. So if you've never batch cooked in your life, don't start now because you're not going to stick with it. If it's
Yeah.
something that you enjoy doing, by all means. But I always call it, so imagine if, you have your dinner plate, you have your plate, and I call it like my plate method, my full plate method. So I always recommend, divide your plate in half or divide your plate in three parts, but
Yeah.
half of that plate you're filling up with vegetables. So half of your plate has whatever vegetables, you love. Broccoli, kale, spinach. It can be a mixture of vegetables. It could be one vegetable. And then the other half of that plate, you're going to split between, a good high quality carbohydrate. So maybe that's a starchy vegetable like potatoes or sweet potatoes. You can also do a whole grain rice.
Yeah.
You could do whole grain bread if you wanted it. And then the other half is protein. So whether it's a fish or it's a lean red meat, it's turkey, it's eggs. But being able to visualize your plate like that and build your plate that way makes it a little bit easier and more attainable. So you don't have to feel so much pressure to batch cook all this food or buy all these specialty foods, but more so wherever you're at, wherever you're eating, you can easily look at your plate and visualize it and say, hey, does half my plate have vegetables on it?
Yeah.
And that's a really good way just to include, more fruits and veggies, more antioxidants, more just nutritional value to your meals. So that's one of my easiest recommendations.
Yeah.
Another thing that I
Okay.
always like for moms is how can you take just a simple fast meal and what I call is like upgrade it. And I love using spices. So one of my favorite spices is cinnamon. We think of cinnamon often in, desserts or,
Yeah.
pumpkin pie or, fancy holiday drinks. But cinnamon is actually chock full of antioxidants. And antioxidants are so important for decreasing inflammation. And we do know inflammation is linked to disease. And after birth, we want to do our best. Well, throughout pregnancy and after pregnancy, we really want to keep inflammation at an all-time low. And so adding spices like cinnamon, for instance, is a really easy way to add one flavor to your food, but also add a boost of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory
Turmeric is
foods.
really good as well for inflammation. That's my understanding as well, isn't it?
Yep, is
Yeah.
turmeric is also fantastic.
Mm.
Clove. So if you're making a pumpkin pie, you always use clove. For instance, ginger, garlic are all wonderful foods, but also can be used in spice form. And I like that, and I say that during times of like after pregnancy when you're cooking because one, all of these spices are shelf stable. They can go in your pantry,
Yeah, for
they
a long.
stay fresh, and you can use that. You just need a little bit to go a long way. And, a big thing for me, at least after pregnancy, was I would always stock my refrigerator full of food. But like you said, I never had time to cook it. So all the
Yeah,
food was going bad, it was going to
same
waste.
here, yeah. Mm.
And so I started to say, okay, what's creative ways? If I make broccoli, I always add garlic to it. I always cook it, in olive oil. That way I can add some healthy fats. I can add some antioxidants with the garlic. Just little ways like that to upgrade what it is you're eating and make, like I say, make every bite count. Every bite has,
So it's not
good
so
nutritional
bland because I find that's another thing. If you're just cooking the same thing that is just simple, sometimes you just get bored of it. You think I just had the same thing for like
Exactly.
5 days. I can't do it anymore.
Yep, exactly. If you and not being afraid, like you said, to add flavor when you just boil food, oftentimes even boiling food, when you're boiling it in water, for instance. So let's say going back to broccoli. If you've ever boiled broccoli, you notice the water turns green. That's a lot of nutrients that you're losing in the water. So, not only is overboiled broccoli not tasty, it has lost nutrients. So what I actually recommend is roast it in the oven with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of garlic. You have better flavor
Yeah,
and it keeps a lot of the nutrition.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
get
Roasted
creative.
vegetables, and they taste really nice. Roasted vegetables. So you can
Mm.
even make soup with a lot of roasted vegetables. You put them in
Yep,
the oven, and then just put a little bit of water, and then you can have like pumpkin soup, really well made from the
yep,
oven. It's super easy to
exactly.
do. Mm.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. So I think that, just kind of going back to when you're pregnant, there's a lot of things. I think I saw somebody had asked a question about vomiting.
Yeah, so she
So,
asked, she said she was scared to eat or binge eat after birth.
yeah, so with hyperemesis gravidarum, that's definitely important to note that that is not morning sickness. That is severe vomiting in pregnancy. And so oftentimes with that, I mean, as a nurse, we see a lot of cases of dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and nutritional deficiencies. And that's definitely something that you want to treat early on, and you want to make sure that we are controlling the vomiting as much as we can. I feel for any mother who has to deal with
Yeah.
this because
And some people deal
not
with it
all,
for a long time because some
mhm.
people have it for the first few months, but then some people have it. I had colleagues at work, nurses, that had it for 8 months, something ridiculous. They couldn't eat, they lost
Yeah,
weight. Instead of gaining weight when they were pregnant, the
hmm,
baby was really small because obviously they wouldn't be able to eat anything.
exactly. No, exactly. And that's the truth is, this is a whole different ball game than morning sickness. So as far as being afraid to eat or binge eating after, two different things. So first, I would say I don't know if the person that asked this question, if they have a history of binge eating. That would be important for
No,
me
I
to
don't think
know.
she does. I know who she is. She did
Okay.
have in each pregnancy she had really bad hyperemesis, so she was really sick.
So after pregnancy, it is going to be very common that she probably does feel fatigued. I mean, aside from the fact that you always feel fatigued, with a newborn, but you have to keep in mind that going through 9 months of that condition will really deplete your body of nutrients. So your body's going to be asking for more, and it's really important to honor that. If you do feel like you are hungrier than normal, you really just need to tune in and listen to your body and eat when your body's asking to eat. I wouldn't worry about binging. It could also be normal. It's less of the case, but there are times where we see mothers who had HG throughout pregnancy. Sometimes after delivery, most of the time after birth, we notice that goes away. There are cases where afterwards it will linger around. It's really
Oh
common to
yeah, I
still
think
have.
actually someone just said that to me, maybe earlier in a private message. They said they
Mhm.
wanted to ask because she has carried on after birth for a while. She has had that
Mhm.
continue.
Oh, goodness. And that is really common. It's more rare to continue on after birth, but it absolutely can continue after birth. And so it is, important to know that and to realize that, you know, if this is something you're going through, you're probably already working with a nutritional professional or a doctor. But if you are worried about what your plan will be for once baby is here, I highly recommend meeting with a nutritional professional so you can already have a plan in place because the
Yeah.
last thing you want is baby's here and now you're trying to come up with what your game plan will be. And like we both said, you just don't have time when baby's here. But it is so important that you're eating really well afterwards, as long as you can tolerate it, because you really need to replenish your nutrition stores. I mean, you've been depleted not only being pregnant, but especially with the combination of HG throughout pregnancy. So I would say definitely meet with a nutrition professional if you can to come up with a game plan, but I would not worry about binge eating. It is likely your body will want more, but it is important that you honor that.
Is there any tip or trick that you may have for like maybe helping with the hyperemesis
That
at all?
so with so I would say with that, because it's so severe, unfortunately, at that point, um, patients usually will find themselves either getting nutrition in the hospital through a feeding tube, electrolytes,
Yeah.
hydration, sometimes or medication. Dealing with morning sickness, which is less severe, still not fun, but less
No.
severe
Yeah.
than HG, is kind of a trial and error. There's different things, so you kind of have to experiment. Everybody's a little bit different. For me personally, like one thing that some women really do well with is ginger. Ginger is actually very calming for your stomach, can help with nausea. For me, actually, it made it a lot worse, and I couldn't take ginger. Um, so one thing that I did find that worked for me was before getting up in the morning, before going to bed, I always had a little snack next to my bed. I would wake up in the middle of the night feeling horribly sick. That was just me in my pregnancy. And so I always had a couple crackers and a couple almonds. So a little bit of carbohydrate and a little bit of protein. I will say that's, one of my biggest tips for anybody, pregnant or not pregnant. But even while you're pregnant, really making sure that your blood sugar is stable is important because that blood sugar crash can actually lead to feeling more nausea. So having that little snack of both protein and carbohydrates to keep my blood sugar balanced, I would snack on that honestly first thing in the morning, and that actually made it less for me. The nausea was less. It was still there, but it was a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah.
So having small snacks with again protein and carbs is helpful. Some women do really well with, like I said, ginger. Sometimes that first trimester, you're surviving off of crackers and water.
Yeah, well, that's
And
what it is. I've heard all sorts of stuff, and here and when I was pregnant, my lots of the advice from other moms in the mom groups around here was suck on a lolly, like an
mhm,
ice lolly, which it wasn't especially sweet, but just like a lemon one or whatever, or yeah, or have biscuits, crackers,
yep,
salty crackers, and just have them whenever you were a little bit hungry or
yep,
feeling sick, they just have a little bit, not a lot, and
yep.
then just enough with something in your stomach so you're not feeling continuously sick.
Exactly. And honestly, with the morning sickness, getting too hungry can actually make it worse. So having
Mm.
snacks on hand is key. I think in the beginning, you just have to be gentle with yourself. And sometimes it's just about surviving and getting through it. So I wouldn't worry too much about if you're eating, enough vegetables or this or that. If you're dealing with a lot of morning sickness, just you have to experiment and see what you can do. And sometimes just resting more too, helps kind of keep it in check.
And there's another question about elderberry.
Elderberry. Okay, so
Yeah.
elderberry. So elderberry is definitely gaining popularity. It's been around, of course, forever. But during times of, more of illness, so like the flu season or cold
Yeah.
season, it is really wonderful in helping keep your immune system strong. I will say though, with mothers, so pregnant women, breastfeeding moms, there's not a whole lot of research on a lot of, just different herbs and supplements, for instance, like elderberry, which makes it difficult because a lot of times when we don't know, we always say just better safe than sorry. If you don't know, don't take it. Exactly. And so with elderberry, there's really just not enough research to say whether or not it can be harmful. I will say this, I I actually took it a few times while I was breastfeeding, and there was absolutely, no problem. I would talk to your doctor, though. I would talk to your doctor. You can even speak to your pediatrician. You can find a lactation consultant to figure out, just what works best for you. But I definitely think that to play, be on the safe side, if it's not something you've ever taken before, um, I would just avoid it, especially if there's extra herbs in there. So sometimes elderberry is mixed with a lot of different herbs, and some can actually either decrease your milk supply, or perhaps, they may not be great for baby. So if you are going to take an elderberry, you want to make sure that it's literally just elderberry and water, or sometimes it has elderberry water and honey.
There's nothing else in it.
Honey, exactly. And you're just taking, again, it also comes down to moderation. You don't want to take anything in excess because of course, anything that you're taking in gets absorbed in our bloodstream. And also, into baby's milk. So
Yeah.
taking too much of anything, of course, isn't good. But unfortunately, just to kind of summarize, there's not a lot of research, so it's really hard to say with complete certainty one way or the other.
But I think that's one of the key things I got from like lots of the things throughout pregnancy with food. I think there's because the nature of pregnancy itself, a lot of people don't obviously want to do research on pregnancy
Exactly.
because it's just not, it's almost like, it's not a good thing to do. And a lot of people don't want to do it as pregnant. Yeah, I don't want to be in a research
Yeah,
group or something that I don't know if you're gonna damage my baby.
of
So
course, of course.
so I think
It
there's
makes
that's
complete
one of the,
sense. No, absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's the tough part for moms is there isn't a lot of research. It makes sense as to why there's not, because like you said, we don't want to ever harm baby. We don't want to harm mom. But it does make it hard when you want to take something and you don't really know how it's going to affect you or baby. And so, that's why, at the end of the day, it's just more important to be safe than sorry, and know, it's only a short period of your life.
yeah,
But
hopefully.
yeah,
Depending how many you
true,
have,
right?
obviously.
Yeah, depending how many you have, you're right. You could be pregnant for a very long time. But I will say, if you're trying to build your immune system, there's a lot of great things you can do. So, vitamin C, probiotics, getting,
Probiotics are
like,
great, and I think they're forgotten. A lot of people don't
yeah.
take them because they don't think about them, and
Hmm.
I've taken them, and they're so good for you.
Probiotics are so important for, so a lot of people don't realize the vast majority of your immune system resides in your gut, in our intestines. And so it's so important to make sure that you're keeping a healthy gut. And you do that by building a health a healthy microbiome. And so probiotics and then prebiotics are kind of like the food for your probiotics, if you will. So that's like fiber, oatmeal, asparagus, all, wholesome foods that you should be eating anyway, are really important to eat. So probiotics you can definitely take as a supplement, but you can also get it with fermented foods. So foods like yogurt, kefir,
Yeah.
sauerkraut. Those are all fermented foods that are great sources of probiotics. that are really important for building and keeping a strong immune system. Along with your vitamin C, your vitamin D. I really am a big
Mm.
believer in vitamin D supplements. Do you get enough sun? Most of us don't get enough sun. Yeah,
Definitely don't
exactly. Yeah, right.
hear.
Well, that's a thing. And even here where it's, being sunny, a lot of times when we go into the sun, we're wearing sunblock or a hat or long sleeve shirts to protect ourselves from getting sunburn or, we hear about skin cancer. But when we do that, we're not allowing our body to absorb, what it needs in order to metabolize vitamin D. So, vitamin D is also really important supplementation, especially while pregnant and breastfeeding because baby can actually get vitamin D through your breast milk if mom's taking enough of it. So I actually recommend 4,000 IUs of vitamin D for pregnant women and breastfeeding women. And that's really great in supporting your immune system too.
Cool.
Amazing. We're very conscious that again, this topic is absolutely massive. So again, it's very tempting to just do a 48-hour marathon. But I think we'll have to have you back on at a later date. Maybe now that we've done the
Yeah,
30,000 foot view, maybe we could we'll definitely set something up. Going into more
definitely. I'd
specific
love
topics.
that.
Yeah, it's lovely to talk to you. It was very informative. And
Oh, good.
yeah,
I'm
I
so
think it's very
glad. It was
helpful.
wonderful to speak with you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website?
Do you
Give me
do
all your.
online things as well? I'm assuming with the pandemic, especially now, you're doing more um,
Yeah,
non-tech.
so everything I do, of course now more than ever, but online consults so we can do whether it's by phone, FaceTime, Zoom, there's so many different ways that we can do it. Do online consults. The best way to reach me, actually, if you go to my Instagram page, you can email me right through there. My email is attached. And I do also, it's Erica, so it's my first and last name, Erica TDRD, which is also my handle, at gmail.com is my email, and ericatdrd.com is my website. So there's different ways
Good,
you can
good
get a hold of
coordination.
me.
Very good
Yeah.
coordination.
Right? I made sure it was easy. But you can always just send me a direct message and I will get back to you and I can point you in the right direction for, contacting me and helping you however you need.
Great.
Amazing,
Yeah.
yeah. And I should say as well that people have been periodically joining and going and stuff. This will be on IGTV, but also we'll try and make it super useful and cut up a bit more of like the themes that we've talked about, and then
Perfect.
people can find YouTube and IGTV and all over the internet. So I think that'll
Fantastic.
be useful as well.
Amazing. Thank you for
Um,
tonight
Thank
or today for you in the
yes,
lunchtime. And yeah, we'll see you soon, hopefully. And
yeah.
all the
Awesome.
best.
Yes, we'll talk
We still
soon.
Yeah, we still haven't worked on any sort of sign off, and we keep doing these, and we have no clear way of actually
Say
ending them.
goodbye.
It seems really bad.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I will sign off. I'll sign
yeah,
off by saying stay healthy, be well, drink plenty of water, and eat your fruits and veggies.
Amazing.
perfect.
Best way. Bye.
Perfect.
All right, you
Bye.
guys, take care. Bye.
Bye.